Hard work.
Yeah.
Rewarding.
Yeah.
And there's not much money in it.
No.
Yeah. We run what we call a social care farm. We work with adults and children with disabilities, learning disabilities, physical disabilities, anything in between. We work with people from the age currently of about 6 up to about 50. We run a business that then helps those young people kind of engage in the development of life skills and responsibilities. And that might be something from as small as, say, feeding the garden birds and collecting chicken eggs, to working with the livestock, fixing fences, driving tractors, and again, everything in between. That's a story that for me starts when I was 15, because when I was 15 I fell ill with something called ME. My education was interrupted. I went from being a pretty fit and healthy youngster to needing a wheelchair. I couldn't maintain my education, and I thought, it's fine, I'll get better in a year, I'll get better in a few months, and I didn't. Fast forward to the age of 31. I was still in a wheelchair, I wasn't able to work, I hadn't been able to continue my education, and one day I just wasn't in enough pain. It sounds like a strange thing to say. Good days happened, so I just chalked it up to a good day, but the next day was the same, the next day was the same, and the next day was the same. And I realised that I was getting better. So that was quite scary. What do I do? How do I even form a sentence to describe what I need to figure out what to do? I was very lucky because the Highland Council, so our local municipality, they paid for me to go to this farm as one of the youngsters, although I was an adult. Simulated work experience. I was there to do work, I was there to learn about the farm, but I was there to be supported by the people who worked at the farm. That was now 8 years ago, and I was very lucky because when my time there ended, I was asked whether I wanted to volunteer because they wanted to keep me in the loop, if you like. And that brief volunteer role led to a part-time job. I fast forward a few years and I learned an awful lot. I was helping with lambing, I was helping with calving, I was helping with everything I could. It was sad timing, but it was fortuitous timing that I lost my surviving grandparents in quick succession about this time. And as we're quite a small family, that meant that we received an inheritance, which meant that we could go to a bank and actually say, look, we need to borrow a huge sum of money, but we have a deposit. We managed to raise the money to take over the farm, which was now just over 3 years ago. So it's been kind of an 8-year lightning transition from being in a wheelchair. I see myself as very boring, very uninteresting, because that reflected my late teenage years, my entire 20s, and that's a perception of yourself that's very difficult to shift once you believe that about yourself. But then Eve reminds me that it's like, but you're not actually boring, and you actually have really quite an interesting story.
But sometimes you're boring.
Well, quite often I'm boring, but not in that particular way, maybe the life story. But it's also really nice because I was very lucky. I met Eve, or started speaking to Eve within that first year of the recovery. So Eve has been a part of my life for basically all of that period of health, which means that my adventure as a healthy adult has been almost entirely hand in hand with my best friend, which is pretty good, really, I would say. Yeah. And here we are in Norway, so it's like... You're up a bit. Oh, yeah. I did try and keep that short.
Yeah.
You have to run it as a human, and that's difficult because when you're working with disadvantaged children and adults, that puts quite a mental burden on you. They're here to speak to you about a 12-year-old who's in care, and you realise it's like you want to talk about this and this and this and this. Or maybe they're about a 21-year-old who's got a lifelong disability and they love farming and they just want a way to be involved, and you start thinking, oh, like this, because there's so much passion there, because I remember being there as a young person. It has changed my life, and you want to just be able to pass even a fraction of that on to somebody else, which is why it gets a bit difficult to stop talking about it sometimes. But thank you. I couldn't do it without Eve's support. I couldn't get through the time of the week that isn't the 9 to 5, if you like. So it's like we're very much a team, even if technically we have different careers. Is there something that jumps out?
I don't know, because we're so honest with each other anyway. There isn't really anything that he doesn't know, but he knows that I'm so proud of him. See, I'm going to start thinking that like I am really proud of him because he didn't have the same life that I had in my 20s. Mm-hmm. You know, I got to go travelling, I got to go out with my friends, I got to do all of that stuff, and Dave didn't. I got to go to uni, he didn't. But he is such a strong-willed person and very intelligent. Your thirst for knowledge is incredible. I'm so proud of everything that he does. So
Oh.
I think that might be the nicest thing you've ever said about me.
Oh.
I think for me, it's like one of the things that annoys me about Eve is that she doesn't see the goodness in herself. I feel like Eve has made me a much better person because the goodness that's sort of in her, which she doesn't always see, is very enabling and empowering for me. You know, Eve isn't just my best friend and my wife and the love of my life. She's very much kind of like the foundation on what my post-recovery life has kind of been built on. And unless you've come out of something dark, it's difficult to have a reference point as to what the thing that's helped get you out of the darkness actually means to you. So I'm very lucky. I hope that kind of answers the question.
Yeah.
And the Oscar goes to...
Indeed, because I was all alive. You never met her before.